Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show. Member of the Pod Bros Podcast Network. Don't forget to go to podbros.com and find yourself another podcast you want to listen to. And don't forget to check out our sponsors, Trap and Roll Soap Company. Use promo code BeefSquatch to get you some money off of your whatever order you need. You need soap. You're going to need Kush Cream that's really, really amazing using CBD. I use it on my joints. It feels great, like especially after I have some people try smashing me in jiu-jitsu. Oh, man, it's awesome. Check it out. And check out our other sponsors, Tape Armor, as well as Rollz Gear, and find all of our old episodes at bjjshow.com. I'm Rob, and Randy and I interviewed Eli Knight. And if you're not familiar with Eli Knight, he has been putting out a bunch of martial arts videos based on self-defense, especially his using jiu-jitsu, how to defend against knife attacks, and he really talks about that today in our episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed it because we had a great time talking to him. And as always, like I said, don't forget to check out our webpage, bjjshow.com, and like us, subscribe to us, iTunes, YouTube, all that good stuff. And hope you guys enjoy this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show. I'm Rob.
I'm Randy.
And Randy, we got another special guest on today. We have Mr. Eli Knight of Knight Jiu-Jitsu. He's on the podcast talking with us. So, Eli, I appreciate you coming on the show and having a chat with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Anytime. So, let's get right into it. How did you get started in martial arts?
I got started by a couple of friends of mine talking me into it, and all that was really around the area that I was living in, this is when I was about 14 years old, was Taekwondo, because I was kind of geographically challenged as far as exposure to different martial arts. But after being in Taekwondo for a couple of years, I met a gentleman named Jason Hawkins, who was kind of ahead of the curve on the martial arts scene, doing a lot of cross training. He was already a black belt in jiu-jitsu, not Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which was not really very exposed at the time to us, but he was cross-training. Besides jiu-jitsu, he was doing Filipino martial arts and Jeet Kune Do and a lot of other things. At the time, he was already pursuing instructorship under Dan Anasanto. And so whenever I switched over and started studying with him, I was exposed to a lot of really, really cool stuff. It opened my eyes to a broader world of martial arts. And this was in the early 90s, so the UFC had just hit, and we wanted to know more about this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stuff, or this Gracie Jiu-Jitsu stuff. So we, in addition to the other seminars that we would go to in other martial arts, we started to kind of stalk Royce Gracie around the nation whenever we could find a seminar or a camp or anything. And eventually he started to recognize us after just a frequency of us attending his stuff, and he asked us to become an affiliate or an association, which was then under the Gracie Academy. Once he left and started his own network, we were one of his flagship networks, and we've been with him ever since. So I kind of narrowed my focus down to jiu-jitsu above everything else. I still do train Muay Thai. I still do train other things, but besides jiu-jitsu, probably Muay Thai the most. But that's my main passion and pursuit, and kind of now career. So that's about it.
And you've taken it and you've gone with a lot of self-defense that working and showing or displaying self-defense, kind of demonstrating how jiu-jitsu is used for self-defense or for law enforcement applications and things of that nature. How did I know jiu-jitsu's always been originally about self-defense, but how did you kind of start getting involved with more showing that and just bringing it to the masses?
Well, I think that it was never really delineated that much in the early days. I mean, when you would go and study, with the Gracie family, like jiu-jitsu was self-defense. I mean, yeah, there was rolling and everything, but the tournament scene wasn't really that broadly displayed. In the early to mid 90s, it was a fighting art. It was about self-defense primarily, as far as the Elio Gracie tradition, and so the Gracie brothers, the original generation, they started to do a lot more stuff with police once they were in the United States, and with military and with things like that. And so it really kind of shaped the complexion of what all Gracie Jiu-Jitsu had to offer. So it's I guess I kind of had a unique vantage point from that era, and because of who the bulk of my training and our training was under, to see how the scene kind of grew. And it was weird because it was just almost like waking up one day and seeing that the sport had kind of surpassed, as far as popularity, the self-defense or fighting aspect of it, and even the MMA aspect of it to a degree. It's the complexions have really changed over the years. But I always kind of profess that I love the totality of the art, and I actually enjoy the tournament jiu-jitsu. I'm not one of these guys that's on one side of the fence way too more heavily than the other, of saying, from this self-defense aspect, putting down the tournament scene, or the tournament scene putting down the self-defense. I enjoy it all. I just ask for clarity. I just ask for people to be intellectually honest whenever they're saying, that they're doing jiu-jitsu, to say, if they're only doing sports jiu-jitsu, not to portray that as the totality of it. And I think that that's fair. I think that everybody, if they're really involved in the art, they can see, what they truly practice.
I agree. I think that's. I think we were kind of in agreement on the podcast about that exact point. It's something we've talked about a couple times with other guests, and I definitely wanted to make sure we got into it with you. Being able to balance both worlds between self-defense and sport, knowing the difference. And I think when you get into studying the art at a deeper level, you can see the applicability of different techniques. But I think it's of dual benefit. If you train sport, you also should train self-defense to make sure that you're keeping it real. But at the same time, if you train self-defense, you should also cross-train in sport, because there's a dual benefit piece.
Yes. And I think that the competition aspect of it, even if we're not talking about actually going out and getting into the tournament scene, going and registering for an IBJJF, PANS or Worlds or something, I think that talking about the competitive aspect of it, even if you're just learning sportive moves so that you can tap the guy in class that tapped you last week, there's still a huge benefit to that, because that's one of the things that makes, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I guess, if we're just going to use that kind of moniker, that's what makes the training paradigm of it so beneficial, so effective, because the ability for you to train the bulk of your techniques in a competitive environment and simulate that kind of conflict, that's something unique to other martial arts. You can't really do that with most striking forms. We can't go and practice that similar to an actual fight with any other kind of striking style, because you can't go and bare knuckle and punch each other in the face. You have to,
right.
You have to have a lot more restrictions. And of course there are limitations, and when we do put in safeguards and rule sets for the competition aspect of it, but you're still getting so much of that contact and so much of that combative feel to it, and that's one of the biggest benefits in my book about it.
Do you feel that it, well, you're talking about given the feel of combat and stuff, do you feel as though maybe a lot of people outside, we were talking, Randy said you don't want to hit somebody barehanded, that hurts real bad, kind of romanticize what an actual fight is like. And that's kind of why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or just Jiu-Jitsu in general, has an edge, because you get to have that live application of just how messy and terrible a scuffle could be, but thankfully without getting punched in the face.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a thing with it. I think that I always think about the movie Fight Club. It's how much can you really know about yourself if you haven't been in a fight? And I think that's what people experience when they come into a jiu-jitsu class. There's, you can go hard in standing sparring. You can go hard and put on some gloves and headgear and really go at it with somebody, and you feel like you've simulated a fight. When you have somebody on top of you trying to choke you, from the mount or from top side control, trying to smother and smash you, or somebody, simulating breaking your arm, and you have to escape from that, that's a different degree. I think that it's going to be relative to different people, but I think that most people will feel like that's a more severe, intense degree a lot of the time.
I agree, and I think that's another reason why it's so effective in law enforcement, which is where I get a lot of my teaching is with the officers that I work with. And I think that having that active resistance and that exposure to it, what it feels like, and getting a little bit more conditioned and comfortable with it, and not panicking, knowing when you're in trouble, when you're not.
Yes.
And understanding how to control dominant position, which I think is probably the most under-taught things in law enforcement defensive tactics, is how to maintain a dominant position once you've attained it. I think those are extremely important. You only get that when you get that live sparring experience, like you're talking
Yes.
about. You're rolling against somebody who is trying to impose their game on you, and you're trying to impose your game on them. That's really the only way you get that feel, and it's a way for cops to train in that realistic setting without having the ridiculous injury rate that would come with just doing spar training or the red man suit like they used to do back in the day and just slug it out. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's absolutely crucial, and I think that's why for law enforcement it's imperative that they experience that before, because you don't want the first time they experience that kind of stress and that kind of environment to be in the field. I mean, that would be a nightmare, and that is a nightmare. You see it happen a lot of the time with undertrained officers, that haven't had that exposure, that experience, and especially whenever you're wearing all of your tools and all your gear, and your mind starts to automatically go to that. So, I mean, I think that it's really important to be able to find that balance, and that's where the worlds have to delineate a little bit too, because you can't go to the other extreme and have officers that are just strictly trained in more sportive endeavors in jiu-jitsu, because if they're going in there and they're playing spider guard with 90% of their training, they're going to have a little bit of a lack of attention and awareness to some of the things they need to monitor and get better care of in that situation. But you were talking about with the stressful aspect of it. In my opinion, that's the number one biggest benefit that you can get from training martial arts, particularly jiu-jitsu, is that stress inoculation aspect of it. Getting accustomed to that and seeing how you're going to perform. You learn so much about yourself and so much about where your brain's going to go in that, and being able to control that aspect of you is something that I think it takes something like jiu-jitsu. I don't know anything else that can do it as effectively.
I agree.
Well, I was going to say, I was thinking about, like, while we were talking about the red man suit and stuff like that, even some people who, like you said, we just strictly train self-defense, jiu-jitsu or whatever, going in and actually doing jiu-jitsu with strikes or letting people, slap each other in the face a few times, starting to see the, what is it, I guess an uptick on some of the events that allow that as well. And probably one of the more entertaining videos I've seen recently was, I guess somebody didn't understand the rules exactly.
I know the video you're talking about. Yeah.
So for our listeners and friends who haven't seen the video, pretty much it's a combat jiu-jitsu match, and you're allowed to slap to the face on the ground. And the dude walks in and like pimp slaps his opponent like while they're standing there. And
yeah. I was so confused about that. Like, how do you get to the event, the day of the event? You're in the ring. You're in the environment. How did you miss that at the rules meeting? One of the most important rules that you can't slap until you're actually on the ground. Just hauls off and just like slaps the hell out of the guy standing. And
it was even with the crowd going, you could still hear just like strong pimp hand slap just as hard as he could. But the reaction of it, which I found interesting as well, was like, it's a rule set, but he was just kind of stunned. Like, dude, you slapped me right in the face as hard as you could. I mean, I think that still is something a lot of people need to maybe implement more as well. Just, once every so often, just so people know that, like you were talking about spider guard, like nightmare situation, you get spider guard in a self-defense situation, somebody kicks the extra point right into your satchel, I guess.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is we should every now and then we should keep the pimp hand strong, is what you're saying.
Hell yes, man. Absolutely. I was just wondering, like, with that, do you find tools like that as well, that helps out with the self-defense aspect of it, or do you implement anything like, I guess maybe unique or not really unusual, but just kind of something that you find works and helps people deal with, not just dealing with the grappling aspect, but oh man, this person wants to hit me as well?
Yeah, I mean, you can take it in so many different directions. I mean, you really can. There's, I can think of half a dozen just off the top of my head. One of the ones that I became kind of known for is the whole knife stuff, which I absolutely hate knives. I hate to, I mean, granted, I love knives. I think that they're beautiful. I think they're really cool, but I hate the thought of defending against someone with a knife, especially like empty-handed, like So, but that's one of the big criticisms that, especially like the reality-based self-defense world gives toward BJJ is, and it's weird because you think that like jiu-jitsu has had a rich enough history of proving itself effective in fights that some of the criticism that's still alive today is just weird. I mean, it's like, BJJ is a cool sport and all, but don't try to use it in a street fight. You see this in comment sections of videos all the time, and it's just crazy. Well, because there's going to be weapons, there's going to be multiple attackers. It's like these guys, I guess, are thinking that every street fight involves like 3 dudes with knives and guns and clubs, and they're just all gonna, hey, you show me the martial art that works against that, and I'm switching up tomorrow. But
Bruce Lee did it. Bruce Lee did it effectively.
He did, and that's that karate school he went to that time. Yeah, yeah. Everybody wants to be John Wick and Bruce Lee, and but no. The answering that criticism, I don't know what's going to be great against 3 guys. My answer to that is, well, learn how to fight one guy first, and then let's deal with it. It's not just a tactical change; it's exponentially harder to fight multiplied bad guys. So. But then, you take a force multiplier like a knife or a gun or something like that. Well, with the knife situation, I don't know. I mean, I think somebody running at you with a knife is a different consideration than you getting into a fray and then a knife being produced in the middle of a fight. And so that was what I addressed on whenever I did the instructional series, loosely called that, that we called the bladed grappler. I didn't come up with that name, by the way. I don't like the name. But the Bladed Grappler series, where it was about addressing just that, it was like, okay, this is a fight where, because of a lack of opportunity or lack of intent, the person hasn't drawn this weapon that they have until the fight is already in the grappling range, particularly on the ground. My kind of thesis behind that was, well, the hierarchy of positions in jiu-jitsu already does a pretty good job of monitoring the ability for somebody to deploy a weapon that hasn't deployed it already. So, that built-in monitoring system is already there. To a degree. Now, there are different considerations that you need to make. There are things that you need to watch for, things you need to monitor, and if that weapon does come out, ways you can handle it with slight modifications to the position or to the techniques, and that was what that series really focused on. Of course, on spec, it garnered a lot of attention just because, this guy's trying to say that jiu-jitsu works on the ground with somebody with a knife, and so for the people who didn't take the time to really research it at all, there's negative feedback, but mostly it was received with pretty positive responses.
Well, and I think one of the worst things you can ever do is not have a plan for that worst case scenario. Just because your plan may not be the proven best effective 100% success rate plan doesn't mean that it's not a better option than no plan.
Correct.
And there really isn't any way to prove which method is the ultimate best unless everybody wants to go out there and just get stabbed repeatedly to find out.
Right.
So, to me, I think the concepts of jiu-jitsu, like you said, they afford you a lot of opportunity for control, and that's probably one of the best things you can do against somebody that introduces a weapon to a fight. When you're already committed to that fight, you don't have the option of creating distance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, 2-to-1 control, for example, controlling their body. I mean, you go 2-to-1 on that weapon side hand, that's probably one of your best bets, at least for that immediate moment, until you can transition to something else. And so, I feel like a lot of the Monday night quarterbacks on the internet, they're people that have never faced a bladed weapon before, and they don't have a real knowledge base on how to deal with it. I mean, I'm with you. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm actually, as a police officer, I am more afraid of being stabbed or cut with a knife than being shot by a gun, which sounds ridiculous.
But it does until you explain it, because here's like a few things about why that is a legitimate fear and why that's a legitimate concern that a knife is scarier than a gun. Number one, because everybody has been cut and very few of us have been shot. So we already have a psychological awareness of how bad it sucks to get cut. Mm-hmm. And most of us who haven't been shot, it's still a little imaginary. Yeah, it's scary, but it's a little more abstractly scary. The other thing is you have one direction that bullet comes out of that gun. And it can malfunction. It can it can run out of bullets. So it's the knife doesn't have to be reloaded. It's never out of battery. So it's going to keep running, and it's going to stay dangerous as long as it's in the fray. So things like that. When you start to really kind of look at those elements of it, it makes perfect sense why knives are scarier than guns. But sorry, not to cut you off, but yeah, that just made me think of that.
No, 100%. That's what I was kind of getting at. Was it does sound crazy to say that, but there's definitely reasons, psychological reasons, why that's the case for a lot of people that have any experience in weapons and systems. I mean, knives are just a very menacing thing. And I think another piece of it too, to add on to what you brought up, is almost the intimacy from which it happens.
Yes.
I can shoot you from 100 yards away, and I don't have to be up in your face, and it doesn't. I'm not the one directly causing. I'm pulling the trigger. The bullet's taking care of the rest.
Yes.
But with a knife, it's very, I'm up close, impersonal, in your space, and it's very manual that I'm the one that's doing this. And I think that adds an element of fear to it. So.
Well, and it's a really intimate is a good word for it, because there is something psychological and emotional about it, and you see this a lot of times with video footage of people being stabbed, and you see it from offensive and defensive aspects. You see, like, you can kind of see the wheels turning a little bit, and you see some hesitancy behind that first actual stab, and then once they feel, okay, I did it, then they go a little lizard brain, and they want to keep going then. And that's why you see people stabbed 40 times, 50 times. Yeah, It's like if they can get that one time in, then it becomes a little bit, I guess, psychologically more palatable for them to do so. And that's a scary thing. It takes a different kind of human being to be able to do that. So
I think also something that, like, for me personally, the whole knife scary thing is, I remember reading something about like that, where they're talking about people getting stabbed 40, 50 times, and
yeah,
I'm usually the people aren't dead at that point either. So no.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm just getting stabbed 40 to 50 times before I hopefully start losing blood and go to sleep where it doesn't hurt anymore. But like that to me is terrifying. It's just.
But then you'll see something where somebody was hit one time with a knife and bled out from that one shot.
Yeah.
So it's like it's such an X factor. Like that's why knives are just so scary. So.
There was a video of an officer on a traffic stop that he got blindsided by a woman that wasn't even involved in the traffic stop the officer was on. His attention was to the car he was obviously initiating the traffic stop on, and he had approached the vehicle, and this woman comes off screen with a knife and hits him with the knife. And, I think she cut him. I don't think she stabbed him, if I remember correctly on the video. And the way that officer described the feeling was it felt like he got slapped on the arm. Like he didn't even recognize that he had been cut until after the fact. And that's comforting, but it's also terrifying at the same time.
Oh,
it's comforting in the sense. Yeah.
Overwhelmingly, you hear that from victims of stabbings. You across the board, because most of the time they don't see the knife at first.
Right.
In most stabbing situations, the person doesn't have the luxury of seeing that knife presented, and it's out before they know it. And across the board, you hear this time and time again. I thought I just got hit. I thought he just punched me in the stomach. I thought he just hit me. Until I saw the blood, and then they realize, and then the panic sets in, and then that changes everything, and then like the vagus response kind of kicks in, and then that's when they a lot of times they don't lose consciousness or get woozy from the loss of blood. It's from that awareness that, oh my God, I've been stabbed, and then they their knees buckle, and then they lose the ability in that moment to defend themselves. So I think getting things back on the jiu-jitsu topic, that's where another element of it comes in too. It's like, because once you're in that tactile, once you have that experience and that tactile response, if that weapon is produced, you still maintain the wherewithal from just the sheer nature of contact. You'll see people who have grappling experience that have successfully defended themselves against somebody with a knife, that they may be cut, they may be stabbed, but they're so accustomed to continuing on, in that grappling range, that they're more likely to be able to defend themselves successfully. There was the video that came out recently. There is some scrutiny. I believe Henner did actually Eve Torres, Gracie did a breakdown of it, and it was a woman. I don't know if you guys saw this video. It's on Gracie Breakdown. This woman was walking. There's been some scrutiny because of the camera angle, how it was on it, and there was something weird about the fight, but it looked like this man approached this woman who was walking alone, and he pulled a knife on her to kind of to redirect her. He was trying to take her off somewhere, and what was assumed to be to be a sexual assault that was going to happen. And she grabbed and she defended herself against this guy who was accosting her, or not really 100% attacking her at the time. But it was kind of interesting because she obviously, through her movement, you could tell that she had trained and she had some familiarity with grappling on the ground, and she had some jiu-jitsu training. So I think that it does. I think there are, of course, detrimental things that can be like programmed into your muscle memory from that. But I also don't think that there's a whole lot of people out there that are going to pull guard against somebody that's wielding a knife in the street. I think people who have no idea about what jiu-jitsu is besides what they see in tournament footage of BJJ, and they've never actually trained themselves. They think, oh, this guy's gonna try to berimbolo sweep somebody in a street fight or something, or what's he gonna do? He's gonna do a flying armbar on a guy on concrete. Now, nobody's that stupid that I've met personally, but
I feel like a lot of times in my exposure to the conversations I've had in the performance of my job, which is still a lot different than your quintessential straight up fight. It's always a little bit different. But what I found is that fancy stuff doesn't even enter into your brain as much, in that, because it doesn't even really, the situation, the encounter doesn't really lend itself to where that's effective. Those moves are effective as far as jiu-jitsu against another jiu-jitsu player. Yes. And those different positions are brought into the equation because you're going against somebody who's trained, and they're applicable under that setting. But when you're going against somebody that doesn't have training, or even if they do have training, they're acting so far outside their head, they're not applying it. Yeah. The basics of jiu-jitsu work so well because that's where the fight stays.
Yes.
Not because, so like if you become so accustomed to body feel and the tactile awareness that, if the person you're fighting on the street happens to be a sambo or player or wrestler or jiu-jitsu player, and they stand up in your guard, you'll probably go to some variation of a sweep or a takedown that you've learned, but most of the time it doesn't go that way. And so you only apply what's necessary at the time, and it's all about the basic concepts of control and defense. And so, like, on the knife topic, I feel like, I've had to go hands-on with a guy that had a bunch of homemade knives. He had them tucked into his waistband. It was me and another officer wrestling with the guy. And it was all about controlling his limbs, which is still very much a jiu-jitsu concept, right? Because if I'm going to initiate my game, I need to be able to have some semblance of control, get my grips, my points of contact.
Yes.
And so if he would have made a furtive movement toward his waistband with a free hand, I would have instinctually controlled that because I'm not letting him impose his game on me, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where it comes back on having that exposure to jiu-jitsu, regardless of whether you're, a high-level black belt, or you're a brown belt or purple belt or even some blue belts. You're still going to have a distinct advantage in that environment against a bladed weapon because of the things that everybody else in jiu-jitsu takes for granted,
Yeah.
So that's just been my perception.
No, I think that's absolutely spot on. I mean, because it is, and once you're in that range and you have familiarity with that range, then you are going to notice what movements mean what, just inherently. Because it's very different if someone is trying to initiate a grab on you, initiate some kind of like hold or some kind of movement like that, versus if they're trying to strike you, versus if they're kind of searching for something on that person to like attack you with. And because you don't just have visual cues that you have to process and then send the signal out. You have that immediate tactile response, and you have that muscle memory from training. So I think that gives you a big leg up against most situations like that.
Yeah.
And I feel as though, well, maybe not feel, but kind of seeing as well, like, I think the blue belt, like you're talking about, maybe the blue belt area of being trained is dealing with white belts, and pretty much you're facing white belts on the ground more times than not. Like I've always said, I really, really, really hope that there's not just some band of jiu-jitsu, like, muggers or, like the Foot Clan, but in jiu-jitsu form, I guess. Yeah. But, like, you're going to have to deal with people spazzing out when you get them on the ground, and always, like their instinct is, probably maybe stand up or do something. Like you see some of it in just white belt grappling matches, or even just if you're like me and binge watch just street fights for like an afternoon. Just people, Guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I got a lot of free time on my hands on days off.
No, you can chalk that up to research, man. That's
There you go.
that CCTV footage is research. So,
Yeah.
That World Star video is research. But no, I think you're exactly right. I mean, because you think about even with the proliferation of MMA. I mean, there's a UFC on tonight. I think there was one last weekend. There was, there's all this MMA on all the time. So for the first time in history, you're getting kind of armchair quarterbacks of technical fighting, more technical fighting. But at the same time, most people still don't train. And most people, even if they're imitating what they've seen, it's not a real technical response. So like you're saying, I think that by the time someone is a blue belt, unless they have only been extremely specializing in tournament style jiu-jitsu, just a game plan of, okay, I'm going to go out, I'm going to pull guard, I'm going to go for this specific sweep, I'm going to use this specific pass, and then I'm going to get this choke with the collar, unless that's how they got their blue belt, by winning enough tournaments. I think that most people are going to have a comprehensive knowledge of that grappling environment well enough to be able to handle themselves against, somebody at least close to their physical equal, if not a bigger, stronger person.
Yeah.
I think that's also where it's important to train. Sorry, Rob. I think it's also an important time to train when you're at that upper level too. You get into purple, brown, black, not to get so comfortable with the flowy style rolls that you encounter with those higher belts, but force yourself to inoculate against some of the new white belts, the big, strong athletes, the wrestlers that come in. So because you got to keep that conditioning to that style, that type of aggression and that energy,
Yes, I think that's huge. Yeah, you got to, that's something you have to really. I think you should really always kind of come back to, and have, it's like a well-balanced diet. I mean, you don't want to get just too specialized, and I've just got to keep a leg up and be able to catch all my purple belts or be able to catch all my brown belts. No, I mean, you need to have some of those white and blue belts, throw on some gloves sometimes and see, start from inside the guard and see, how much damage you're going to take before you can get over on top of them or choke them out. I think that's a very important aspect of it. And that's, I think that's how I derailed the conversation earlier talking about knives. So I was going to make the point that, some of the ways to turn up the stress in some of the environments is not just to have open mat sessions where you're like, okay, guys, let's just come in here, slap and bump and roll from our knees and, catch each other. But, to throw on some big gloves, throw on some 4-ounce gloves, throw in, I'll have periodically, I don't do this super regularly for my classes, but we will have introduce some weapons sometimes. And a lot of times the way that I'll do it is I'll have people start a roll. And it may be with strikes, it may be with 4-ounce gloves with light strikes, or it may be with no strikes at all. But during the process, I'll slide a training blade, rubber training blade, over toward them, and if they can get it, then they can try to use it, and the other person has to defend against it. So it really heightens kind of the awareness that you have to have. And I tell them too, like anytime that I'm doing any knife work with anybody, I don't think that the biggest benefit is that I'm gonna like train you to where you're gonna get gain the ability to defend yourself against a knife attack in the street. But I do think having that thing that heightens the stress and heightens the awareness of it, even if you're using a rubber floppy training blade, that's still what that simulates and what that represents. At least raises the volume a tiny bit on the stress. Nothing like nearly what an actual blade would, and against somebody who is not your friend, that's your training partner, but it's still imitative of something that's going to be more stressful.
I'll tell you what really opened my eyes to that was when I was going through an instructor course out in Charlotte one time, and they brought it was relatively new technology back then, which is why they brought it to the classroom. They passed it around. Masochists that we are as defensive dad instructors, we were all testing it out on each other to see what it felt like, was the shock knife.
Things are nasty.
And, you figure out real quick that because I trained a little bit of Kali back in the day, and it's a blast. I mean, it's a beautiful system, and there are certainly aspects of it that are effective, but it's the manner in which you train that makes it effective or not, right, or realistic or not. And so you find out real quick that these guys that like to do these fancy knife drops and fancy knife fighting and all that, it goes out the window when you introduce just a little bit of pain. I mean, a shock knife, it sucks to get cut by it, and it feels like you're getting cut, but it's not the most excruciating thing in the world. But everybody, all of a sudden, it's almost like point fighting at that point instead of being more flowy. So
for sure. And it just even the sound of those things. You hear that rattle of that electricity going through, and you're like, I don't want that thing touching me.
Oh, no.
And that's why I think, like, from a stress environment, those things are valuable. I think that there's issues with those. I mean, they're first of all, they're a little clunky. They're a little unwieldy to deal with. They're and like we were talking about before, most people who get cut or stabbed don't initially know it a lot of the time, and those things let you know right away. But it does, for the stress sake of it, it does represent something that can make you hyper aware of that being in the fray.
Kind of want to invest in a couple now. Just have around the house.
They're
I mean,
horrific.
I've seen them. I've seen them, like, not in the sense of anybody trained with them, because half of me wants to do like the Johnny Knoxville, like, yeah, let's do it, man. Let's see what this is like, and just get shocked. But the other part of me is like, I absolutely, don't want to get hit with one of these things.
Yeah, it's not like a taser. It's like a low voltage stun gun. You can adjust the settings on them. You can turn it up to like there's like low, medium, high, and then like an X or something on it. And but it's really it sucks. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like getting hit with it's not like you're getting tased or something. You're not like debilitated by it. It does burn, and it'll cinch the hair on your arm for good and leave some marks, but still not fun.
How do you feel about the marker knives, the ones that have the black edges on them and they kind of leave some scuffs?
Yeah, I think those are good too. There's a lot of really good training tools like that. I think those are good to let you know, because that's what you kind of like lose track of, if even if you, because there can be some debate after if you're just using like knives that don't leave marks or anything like that, or training devices that don't leave marks. There can be some debate about, no, I think you hit me like this, or I think you just slashed me here instead of stabbed me, or whatever. The marked knives are good about that. Back in the day, we used to just take like rubber training blades and put lipstick around the edges and wear some dingy old T-shirts, and then we would do stuff like that, and it was kind of a that was on a budget back then. So it's like, and there weren't these kind of cool training devices. Those AccuStrike knives I thought were kind of interesting. I don't know if you've messed with those any.
I haven't.
Those they look like kind of like plastic toys, but they are they're interesting because like I would like to see like a hybrid between those and a shock knife, honestly. But what these AccuStrike knives do, you can touch the blade to you and it doesn't make a sound, and the blade is plastic, but you can touch it to you. With pressure though, the pressure like depresses the blade a little bit, and it'll like make a buzzer or make a dinging sound to it, or like a whistle sound. So you know when the pressure's been applied sufficiently to cut, supposedly to cut or to penetrate the skin. There's also a light feature to it where it'll light up whenever it's been depressed hard enough to set the light off. So you can do it on. It is. I think that they were originally more designed for sparring, like knife dueling sparring kind of things. But they do let you know though whenever you've kind of taken a shot. So those are an interesting alternative to something like a shock knife where you have to actually experience the kind of a painful impression of it. But it's
sorry, man, I'm still just excited about it.
Yeah, it's definitely something to experience for sure.
So I got to ask a question about the YouTube thing. So your videos on YouTube, I've watched a bunch of them. I've watched them for a while, and
Thanks.
I've learned quite a bit from them as well. They're pretty good. How did that whole thing take off? How did you get started in that? And how did you become so? I mean, you've got like 100,000 viewers on there now.
Yeah, I don't know how it took off because I started like whenever YouTube became a thing. It was like 2005, 6, something like that. And I first learned about YouTube, and I was with a buddy of mine. We were like purple belts at the time, and we're like, hey, I've seen some people like make jiu-jitsu videos and put them up, and it was rare, but there was only a couple people that did jiu-jitsu videos back then on YouTube. I was like, let's do like a technique of the week kind of thing, and we were very inconsistent about it. It was like a technique a month, if that. And we didn't have phones. Like we didn't have I don't think iPhones were even out yet. So it's like we had like a camcorder and had to convert it and upload it. But I did that. I made videos on YouTube for almost 10 years, 9 or 10 years, like just periodic. I got a little more consistent with them. And then 2 years ago, they just kind of took off. I had about 6,000 subscribers for the first 8 or 9 years, and then about 2 years ago, it jumped up, and I've been just it's gone from 6,000 to 120,000 in like 2 years. I don't know what exactly changed. I mean, I think I got shared by the right people or something, or just, people started noticing my videos more. So, I mean, I definitely put effort into it. It's not like I just, slop some stuff up. I put thought and effort into it. But, yeah, it's hard for me to say, though, what I started doing differently, because I didn't really do a lot differently to get it to take off. It just took off on its own. So there's a saying, and I can't even remember who said it. I can't find the actual source, but it was something along the lines of, after about 10 years of hard work and dedication, you can look like an overnight success. And that's how I feel like with my YouTube channel. It's like really taken off, but it was predicated on 10 years of building up to the last 2. So
I hear you there. Still got 5 fucking years on this. People just start listening to our podcast, please, for God's sake. Well, you can't say it; they're already listening to it. But no, I mean, as like you're talking about consistency and not slopping it together. I feel like there is a lot of just kind of slopping it together that goes on with kind of videos, and that's not everybody. Like, taking thought into it, and everybody's, I guess, maybe has gone through some sort of growing pains with it as well. Like, I always joke about the first 3 episodes of this podcast that have ever been produced were done in a kitchen with a just terrible microphone hooked up to a keyboard, which had like a line out into a computer.
Yeah.
Like a musical keyboard. So it sounded like shit, but it's I think if you, like you said, you put thought into it, and then you want to have like a good production value of it. That I think that kind of really brings it up as well. And a lot of people are looking for quality, like what you produce.
Yeah, and the standards get higher too. I mean, because if you think about what you can do with your phone now, I mean it's crazy. It's crazy, the production quality just with your phone, and maybe even an app if you want to get fancy, and compare that to even 6 or 7 years ago, what you could do with a nice camera and nice audio equipment. I mean, it's mind-boggling when you think about it. And that it's funny because I have enough people watching my videos and leaving comments and stuff, and they'll ask me about my production considerations or something. Like what kind of camera are you using? What kind of audio device? What kind of this and that? I'm like, dude, I typically, not to sound like I just throw this stuff together, but usually I just hand somebody my phone and say, hey, can you record this? And then that's about it. And then, I take that video, I have like a $3 app that I edit it on my phone, and then I upload it. And then, that's about as much as I put into my videos. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I should be like, oh no, I have this special equipment, but it's not that. I don't have the time to really set anything up and plan this out. I'm really lucky when I have an idea, a person to demonstrate on, and a person to record it, and the place where I film is empty enough to where it's not going to have a bunch of background noise. Like when those things all align, then I'll take it. So
yeah, and that's it's still mind blowing that you can do all of that on a phone. Like,
it is crazy. Yeah.
And I don't know, man. Like, I feel like maybe we could expand into videos or something, but it's always that's a lot of work, like you said. Even though you have this convenient, you have somebody to demonstrate on, and what you want to show, and then you have somebody to record it, and you do it on the phone. That's still you have to have an idea of what you want to do. So I think that's actually pretty mind blowing. That's kind of the X factor for creating content. Yeah, and that was so when I wanted to start doing a Patreon page. Yeah. I thought, because I had people tell me for a long time, man, you should do a Patreon, or you should do some kind of subscription service or something. And I'm like, it's a struggle for me to get one video a week up on YouTube. It's between the amount that I teach and travel and training and everything else. I'm doing good to get that video filmed and edited and uploaded, and then deal with the social media aspect of it and whatever, yada yada. But so I was like, well, the idea kind of occurred to me. Well, I can just record my classes that I teach weekly. So yeah. I just started doing that. I just started, and again, when class starts, I'll hand somebody in the room my phone, and I'll say, hey,
can you record this segment while I'm teaching? And then I'll take all the instructional segments of it and I'll stitch them together and I'll put a little bit of editing into it and upload it to my Patreon. And then people who want to, because people are wanting more detailed instruction, they're wanting something more along the lines of a curriculum that they could follow along with. And then that kind of suffices. So, I'll also give out like instructional kind of, kind of curriculum considerations from time to time, like how these classes can be trained and whatever else. But, that was a way that I found that I could create more content that way.
Yeah, the one thing I like that you've been doing here lately too is when you show multiple options from particular positions or scenarios, because it's easier to kind of wrap your head around that when you put it together in a series. I like that, so that's been some good quality content going up on that.
Yeah, that's how my brain kind of works. It's kind of the ADD factor of, I think that the videos, I just kind of try to make videos that along the lines of what I like to watch. So whenever I see, the two things that I've been doing lately that there's two different kind of genres, I guess, that I like to watch are this kind of thing from everywhere, so I did like a triangles from everywhere, an arm triangles from everywhere, a kimuras from everywhere. Yeah. And I did the like 5 things from this position, or like the first 5 of this that you need to know. I did the first 4 or 5 sweeps, the first 5 escapes, the first 5 submissions, so that was actually one of my most popular videos, was the first 5 submissions you need to know. And I mean, it's not completely, but it's partially arbitrary. I mean, who am I to determine what everybody needs to know for their first 5? But I give my explanation of why I think that these are some of the most important things that need to be front-loaded as information in your, jiu-jitsu journey, in the early stages of it. So.
Then you had the takedowns video that you did that was good too.
Yeah.
So I definitely like how the thought process, how it's organized, because I'm very much the same way. If I start to like your kimuras from everywhere, kimura is my all-time favorite submission if I had to pick one, and a lot of it correlates to my profession as well because it's one of the ultimate for law enforcement in my opinion. But
for sure,
I think the kimuras from everywhere, that just for example, it resonates because then you start to see that submission very well. If it's your favorite submission, you look up that video, I'm assuming it's probably a submission you like a lot, and so conceptually you start to see it, and then all of a sudden you watch a video and it instantly boosts your jiu-jitsu IQ. At least as far as kimuras, because now all of a sudden you see options in other places that you might not have initially thought about it.
I think that's part of it too. I think that's what it's that's partly how my brain works about it as well. I think that's how it resonates with a lot of people, and I think it also kind of shifts the lens a little bit, especially when you're dealing with something with the kimura or the double wrist lock position like that. Is that it kind of shifts your lens a little bit from, okay, this is not just necessarily a submission. It's actually a position in itself, because once that thing is established, once that hold is established, now you both have to work around that. One person is working to defend and escape it and to use that. The other person is using that to upgrade their position and ultimately to finalize it as a submission hold. And so it's kind of like a bit of a head fake, and whenever you're looking at certain things like that, it makes you consider different elements of it to that degree. So that's what I like about it, and that's what I try to point out in the videos. I don't like to sit and kind of like pontificate about like the principles too deep, too many layers deep, because it gets old. I mean, you listen to John Danaher. The guy's absolutely brilliant. He's forgotten more about jiu-jitsu than most people will ever know. But even with his genius, you listen to him go on and on for long enough, and you start to get a little drowsy. It's like, I need and that's just, I think, a product too of the time that we live in. It's like you can only, people's attention spans are just shorter. We need more stimulation. We need more like sensory something. We've got to have some action. We've got to have some principle behind it. We've got to have layers of things to keep our attention focused on things. So.
Well, and I think that I like that format of video specifically because, let's face it, a lot of times people give kind of a negative connotation to YouTube jiu-jitsu guys.
Oh, sure.
Because they're like, you see all these memes making fun of that, the YouTube black belts and stuff like that. Yeah. People that technique collectors, the blue belts basically, that give it a bad name by going on there to try to learn a bunch of techniques that they're not learning in the academy, and then come to the academy and try to apply it. And so to me, it's like I don't go to YouTube to try to learn something new as far as techniques are concerned. Maybe just a new way to apply techniques I already know, and learn additional concepts. Because then, if you understand the mechanics of a submission or a sweep or a position, then those types of videos are beneficial because it's just expanding your mind, expanding your horizons. It's not really teaching you, because you can't learn something, in my opinion at least, you can't learn how to apply a technique effectively physically by watching a YouTube video. You need to do that in the academy. And so, under the watchful eye of a qualified instructor, that's where you learn how to do it the right way, because there's all these little things. And even as you progress, you learn a Kimura at a blue belt. The way you view and apply and perform that Kimura is going to change so drastically by the time you get brown belt that you have to be applying it physically. And so that's where that video, for me, videos like that, when they're uploaded in that format, they can boost your IQ, because you know how to do a Kimura.
Yeah.
And maybe you already know it from a couple different positions. So now you see it from 5 other positions, and you're like, oh, okay. And then when you're rolling, you find yourself in that position. Now you can start working it. So to me, I like it like that. I think that's a much more realistic fashion, as opposed to finding, don't get me wrong, I have instructional videos from different jiu-jitsu players, and what I'll do is I'll have them, but I only will actually go and look at maybe 2 techniques, the way that they apply them, and then bring them into my game. And until I have them down, I'm not going to look at anything else, because it's so hard to learn from just watching a video.
Yeah, it really is. I think they are. I think that I try to mention periodically that these should be supplemental kind of resources. It should be exactly what you're describing. I think that's the best use for it, and that's why. Even though I like a lot of the trendy, sporty stuff, and I go in with my buddies sometime, and we, we'll train the craziest new sweep or something, because it is fun. But I don't make videos on that kind of stuff for the most part. Every once in a while I'll throw up an Instagram video or something about something crazy or weird. But for the most part, my YouTube, I try to dedicate toward solid kind of fundamental things that people are going to have as a supplemental resource, hopefully. Not something that they're going to go into their instructor and be like, hey, I saw this crazy new thing on the Night Jiu-Jitsu channel. Can we work on that for this lesson? And because that's a nightmare for me. I don't like it when my own students come in there, and I do private lessons during the week. And whenever somebody comes in, it's like, hey, that one video that you made, can we work on that? I'm like, no, dude, you need to learn how to pass the guard first.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
We're not working on that for a while. So, but yeah, I need to have some kind of disclaimer or warning or something at the beginning of my videos to say, don't go in and ask your instructor about this.
Let them worry about the curriculum. You can't pass guard, but you want to heel hook somebody. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
had a few of those myself, but so Eli, I think we're at the point now where we have 11 questions.
11, okay.
11 or so. We'll go or so. It just depends. And none of them have to do with jiu-jitsu, but it's more or less just kind of something cool to do and maybe get to know you a little bit outside of the guy who has awesome instructional videos and likes to shock people with shock knives. I mean, those are both very cool things, don't get me wrong. I'm sorry, why am I stuck on the shock knife thing? It's pretty cool.
You need to get you one of those.
I know, I'm just going to run around the house, not do anything with it, but maybe chase my wife. I don't know, but then she'll shoot me. So there's that problem.
Get her like a simunition pistol. And,
yes.
You can have the shock knife, and then that'll make some interesting Friday nights at the household. So.
I bet.
Yeah, let me know if you need some simunition rounds. I've got plenty of them. So.
Oh, for real? Sweet. Actually, let's do it, man. Oh.
Man, those things suck. We went through a course with I went through a Craig Douglas course a little while back. Actually, Ryan Hoover and I both went through this course, and it was in Raleigh, actually.
Nice.
And it was interesting. It was a great course. It was an ECQC course and extreme close quarter concepts, and we did a lot with sim rounds. And that was only like my second experience with sim rounds. And the first one was through some active shooter, active killer like program kind of things a while back, but. Yeah, those are not fun. those are not fun to get hit with.
We train with them all the time on the SWAT team, and they're fun. And initially, they're intimidating. I used to be terrified of them when I first got into this profession because they do hurt. But unfortunately, it's just like anything else, and you kind of get conditioned to it. And now it just doesn't matter. We'll have flat-out war games with simunition rounds, and wearing
man.
T-shirts and stuff, and you just kind of get used to it. But they are a blast, and they're good, just like the shock knife. Good pain inoculation training. So
Yeah.
Now I got something else I want to keep playing. Well, I mean, I did ask my friend, like, how bad are these actually? Like, we were out, and they were doing some training. They're like, turn around, and he shot me in the back of the calf with the one.
Man.
So they kind of hurt. So I get it. I totally get it.
oh yeah.
But I haven't been shocked with a shock knife, so that's probably where my curiosity comes from. All right, so first question:
Okay.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars. It's I'm not like hardcore about either one, but if I had to pick, it'd be Star Wars. So.
Okay, cool, very cool.
All right, so this next one's a little different. Let's see. If you had to choose, would you rather be able to talk to animals, communicate with animals, but they all hate you? They're not being nice to you. They're not friendly at all. Or would you rather have all children under the age of 6 are actively trying to hunt you down and kill you?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's hold on. These are my kids, or these are just all kids?
All kids. Yeah.
Cool. I think I'd rather, well, at least the animals aren't trying to hunt me down and kill me. I mean, I would have to deal with negative opinions from them, I guess, but, and that would suck because, I like animals and I want them to like me back. But I guess I would take the safer option if I had to choose those horrible choices there. So, I guess it's the animals with the bad opinions of me.
Dude, that's a good way to look. I was thinking about it too, because like going through like a mall would be just like terrifying if you go by like, one of the little playground areas and they'll just stop and train their little beady eyes on you and
yeah, that'd be horrifying. That'd be like a Children of the Corn movie or something. It's a nightmare.
We need to make a movie. We need to pitch to Hollywood like right now.
Yeah, I mean, but I agree, and that would be my selection too. But I still just think about how depressing it would be. Like every tree you walk by, there's like 20 birds in the tree just talking trash the whole time when you're walking by. Imagine going to a zoo.
I think
it'd be a nightmare, like seeing a puppy that you want. It's like this adorable little thing you want to like pick up and pet, and then it's just like sitting there thinking you're just the scum of the earth and just talking trash to you, and giving you these telepathic signals about how you're a douchebag, and it's like, man, this is heartbreaking.
Or even worse, you own a dog, and then this happens, and you come home, and dog's sitting there, like, "Hey, welcome home, shithead." Like, another shitty day at work because you suck or something like that.
God, that'd be awful.
Yep. Yeah. All right, here's one. A movie you have been watched that you would be ashamed to tell anyone.
Let's see. A movie.
Or a movie you really enjoy, that's kind of like, come on, man, really? or you're too ashamed to tell. I don't judge because I love The Notebook.
Yeah. Oh man, no, that was horrible. Like, no, that was like a great movie, but like the premise, just that what happens at the end, like that. I just want to ruin that for everybody. That and Titanic, like fuck both those movies, man. Like it's just so depressing. But anyway, man, that's a tough one, man. I remember catching Magic Mike on HBO one time and watching, and I was just like, let's because I remember going to the movie theater when that came out. I didn't go see it at the movie theater, but there was this crazy line of all these like housewives and girls like lined up to see this thing. That and 50 Shades of Grey, which I still haven't seen. I don't really care to, I don't think, but like I remember just seeing that and thinking, what the hell? Like if dudes were lined up for like a porn in the regular theater, that would, I feel like they would just be looked down at by every female coming across. But for some reason it was like more acceptable because it was like role reversal or something. But anyway, I caught it on HBO and I watched it, and I gotta say, like, it was a pretty good movie. I mean, it was male strippers aside and all that, the story was, it was entertaining, I guess, So that's kind of embarrassing to admit that I watched Magic Mike, but it is what it is. So there you go.
I saw a funny, I don't know if it was a meme or something. I think it was a meme on Instagram about 50 Shades of Grey. And basically the idea behind it was, I don't remember the exact wording, but it was like something to the effect of 50 Shades of Grey is only 50 Shades of Grey because it's a millionaire. If it was a poor guy in a trailer park, it'd be a horror film.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a valid point. Yeah, no doubt, right? Yeah,
So,
that would have probably turned out differently.
so kind of following suit with that question, since we're already kind of talking about embarrassing stuff, how about like a favorite pop song?
Right now, I think there's a new there's like a Nicki Minaj song I like. I catch stuff on my daughter's playlists on Spotify every once in a while, and like it'll like transition over to one of her playlists from after one of mine ends or something, you know, because we share like a Spotify account, and like her stuff will come on, and I'll hear like a Taylor Swift song come on or something. And I'm like, hey, I kind of like this, you know. And so this Nicki Minaj song, it's called Megatron, came on, which I was intrigued about because I was like, oh, is this about Transformers?
Yeah, I was just about to ask that. Is it?
Probably not, but I don't know what it has to do with Megatron because nothing in the lyrics makes me think of Transformers. But I was like, it's catchy. So, you know, that's probably like a guilty pleasure song I have right now that I listen to willingly. So
Shit, man, I'd like a song called Megatron too.
right,
Favorite Marvel character?
Spider-Man. Yeah, that's been mine since a kid. I don't even have to think about that one. I've got a tattoo of Spider-Man on my right arm. That was my first tattoo, and so I can't really go back on that now.
Which actor do you think is the best as far as Spider-Man out of the recent movies?
Man, I tell you what, like definitely not Tobey Maguire. I was so pumped. I waited all my life, you know, that I can remember for a Spider-Man movie, and then Tobey Maguire is who they got, and you know he did a fine job in the first one. Those movies were just, I don't know, they were just kind of weak. That Andrew Garfield, I thought he did a good job. I thought he did a really good job. And man, Tom Holland, he's blown me away as Spider-Man. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect because when I first saw him, I was like, he doesn't look right for the role. He doesn't. He's British or something, you know. Yeah. I don't know how he's going to pull this off. Man, I think he's killing it. I think he's done a great job. So.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. So how about? Well, let's see. Where are you out of again, area-wise, geographically?
I'm in western Kentucky, in a little town called Paducah.
All right. So, with that being said, do you prefer the beach or the mountains?
Beach all day. Yeah, I think because I've lived most of my life so landlocked, and you know, geographically challenged in a lot of ways, it was anytime I can get to the beach, man, I'm down.
Nice.
The beach is pretty awesome.
Yes.
I've got mountains close to me. I can go there whenever, you know. So it's, and you know, I don't get me wrong. I love the mountains. Like sometimes I'll actually make the drive out here to North Carolina and going through Asheville. I think it's beautiful. I don't like driving through there whenever there's bad weather, but it's absolutely gorgeous. You know, driving through there and going up in the mountains and stuff. So, but I'll take the beach though.
I got a brother out in Knoxville, Tennessee, so I'm with you on the drive through Asheville. Sometimes it's a little white knuckling, depending on what the weather's like. But,
oh man, yeah,
it is beautiful though.
I've driven that in some horrible snow, and some really like torrential rain too. But like, yeah, driving that in snow and ice, that's a pretty harrowing experience right there.
Yeah.
I would, like mountains and snow don't generally mix. Like I know, what was it? We were under orders because I was stationed in Germany for a while that if we had to go to Italy and it was snowing, we had to take an extra day to like make sure we didn't get trapped on a mountain, like going over the mountains towards Italy. But
cool.
I definitely enjoy the beach more because you don't have to worry about unless there's a hurricane. So I guess it just depends on what type of bad weather you're going to go for. Like,
yeah. If there's a hurricane, I'd probably prefer the mountains. Yeah.
All right, so what's your favorite guilty pleasure food?
Oh man, I guess I'd have to go with ice cream. You know, like some kind of. I was so grateful whenever the universe produced Halo top ice cream.
Oh yeah,
yes,
that stuff was amazing. You know, so you eat a whole pint, and it's essentially one serving of Ben and Jerry's. Is how I look at it. You know, but yeah. So when my wife at the time was pregnant with my daughter, this was years back, and I had never had Ben and Jerry's ice cream, and she introduced me to Cherry Garcia and Chunky Monkey Ben and Jerry's, and so during her pregnancy, I formulated this addiction on those two things, and so then she had our baby, and her addiction, her cravings and stuff went away. Well, mine didn't, because nothing biologically changed with me. So I kept this addiction going, and that I still don't need to be left alone in a room with Ben and Jerry's ice cream. So
what's your favorite flavor of the Halo Top?
Halo Top. It's pretty boring. I like the pistachio. For some reason that's my favorite one. But what I'll do though, which kind of defeats the purpose of the low calorie thing, but I'll take like a half a bag of like shelled pistachios and pour it into the Halo Top pistachio ice cream. So
nice.
Just to get a little extra with it. So.
Well, if you like coconut, you gotta try their toasted coconut. I have legitimately eaten entire one of those, just in one sitting. The toasted coconut stuff is.
Oh yeah, I did coconut. I could. I'm gonna have to try that now. So.
How about Celebrity Crush?
Celebrity Crush. Oh man.
And it could be when you're younger too, if you don't have one that applies now, but just kind of the first one that comes to mind is celebrity that you have an infatuation for.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll say this is when I was younger, in case my girlfriend listens to this. So, Halle Berry. You got to go like classic Halle Berry.
It's always a safe bet.
Oh,
that's
for
always
sure.
a safe call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Have you seen the new John Wick?
I'm just about to bring that up. Oh my god.
Yeah. Her with those dogs, man. Yeah, it's and I was talking to somebody about that the other day, because they were like, man, that movie, like those dogs were awesome and everything, but since that movie came out, you get like a surgence of people who want to go out and get one of those dogs, and it's like, man, those dogs are like they're very difficult to train. They're very like, can be very naturally aggressive. They're not like I don't remember all the points about it, but it was just like that was kind of like, it was cool that they picked that kind of dog, but it wasn't cool because now people are wanting to go out and get them.
Were they Malinois? I'm trying to remember what they were.
Yes, yeah, I was trying to remember the breed, but yeah, they were Malinois.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say you get like kind of like a Lassie type situation going, because what was it, for a while they had just this giant shared gene pool of was it the Shelties, or is that what Lassie was? It was Sheltie or
or Border Collie or something
like that, because there was just massive inbreeding just to crank out these puppies. And
same with 100 Dalmatians or 101 Dalmatians, and those are traditionally pretty aggressive dogs too, just as a breed. And so it's like, it's cool that you see the movie, and these dogs are like amazing and everything, but it's like that's not the same dog you're getting.
No. The dog on screen can talk. Like there's a huge difference.
Yeah, there was something to this, a little unrelated, but there was a friend of mine posted a meme the other day. He's a stand-up comedian, and he posted this. It was just like a phrasing thing, but he said, "If you want me to see a movie about a dog, I'm gonna have to have like a signed congressional letter saying that dog guarantees that dog doesn't die in that movie." He's like, I'm not going to see a damn movie where the dog dies in, and there's a good chance if the movie's about a dog, the dog's gonna die.
Well, and the one thing about the first John Wick, I mean, that movie's been out long enough. I'm not giving away any spoilers. I think everybody kind of knows the premise of that movie by now. I hope so. Yeah. After all the classic memes out there about John Wick and Thanos and everything. So,
yeah.
But spoiler alert: the dog dies in the very beginning of John Wick, which is what sets off the chain reaction of him just going on a killing spree. But I think that as much as I hate movies that involve animals getting hurt, because I adore animals, I think that was almost necessary to set the frame for that movie, because then you wanted everybody in that movie associated with that dog's death to go, and so you kind of stood behind John Wick and rooted for him throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, that's one exceptional instance where it works. Yeah.
No, and then what was it? They did say that they weren't going to kill any more animals in the movies, so like the John Wick series.
Yeah.
So then, imagine my surprise when they shot the. Well, never mind. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
It isn't even out on DVD yet. I'm sorry, guys. God dang it.
Yeah.
He had a ballistic vest on. He was fine.
He did. Yeah, I know. That's why I wasn't gonna go through it. Just no more animals die. I was just like, fuck. I just spoiled.
If you guys can like rewind back and edit in like a spoiler alert coming like before that, because I've seen it and everything, so we're all safe. But yeah, it's anybody listening.
Nobody watches it for the damn dog. I mean, they watched it because they want to see Keanu Reeves and Halle Berry just do tactical reloads and, John Wick just throw the shit out of people. I mean, that's pretty much like all I was watching. And then it was like, my wife was getting annoyed with me because I was like, oh shit, that was a hell of a throw he did. And she's like, shut up, just be quiet.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to see too, and that's why I like part 3. There was some excellent stuff in the third one, but I was like, man, it got real far out in some parts, like with the horse and stuff, and I was like, okay, let's dial it back a little bit and just get back to some fight scenes here.
I agree, absolutely.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Right, how the horse dispatched a couple people was pretty good too. That was kind of watching like that's all right.
Yeah.
But if you want additional information as to why knives are so terrifying, go ahead and watch that opening scene.
Ooh, oh my God. I was thinking about that too. I was like, even was it plot armor aside, I was just no thanks. No, thank you. All right, I think this is the last one. I think it goes well with the Dalmatians. Cops or firemen? Who's cooler?
What?
I have no stake in it.
Who's cooler? Okay. Well,
wait. Actually, no. Let's go back to the person who came up with that question. Randy, what's the intent behind that?
Well, I think I mean, I had to throw it out there because I'm a cop. So there's always this rivalry between police and firefighters. They're like our cousins that we want to, they're our cousins we look out for and we love them, but we want to talk shit too. So my thing was just, which one do you prefer out of the two? It could be if it's a woman guest, then it would probably be from the standpoint of calendars, maybe. But
well,
this one,
I mean, I guess the best I go is I have a lot more friends that are cops than I do friends that are firefighters. I don't really know any firefighters. I don't think. I used to have a buddy who was like a volunteer firefighter, but I mean it's. So yeah, I guess I'd have to go with cops. Yeah.
I think cops are winning so far in our.
We got to keep track of it. I think cops are winning as well, man.
Well, because what it is we're the real first responders. Let's be real here, right? I mean, firefighters are heroes. This is me talking smack. I'm not being serious. All right, firefighters are heroes. I love the firefighters that I work with. We work together very well, but they'll stage for a damn paper cut. And if you don't know what staging means, it means that they'll wait around the corner until cops get there to secure the scene. So,
did you?
On that note,
have you heard Bill Burr's like first responders thing?
Oh no, I love Bill Burr.
It's hilarious. He's like, pretty much the gist of it in summary is like, really, first responders is like, I had to call you to get here. Like it's.
Yeah.
What's the other guy? Hannibal Buress is the one.
Yeah.
He does one too about firefighters. Put the blue stuff on the red stuff, guys. This is what we're gonna do. And then like the strategy. He's got like the whiteboard. He's like, this is what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna put the blue stuff on the red stuff. And if we see more red stuff, if it doesn't go away, we're just gonna put more blue on it.
Man, I love Hannibal Buress. It cracks me up all day.
I was going to say, I think I'm going to listen to stand-up while I do chores today, so... Right.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of that, you know what I get to do today when I get off of here with you guys? After I go do my workout, I'll be getting paid to go and basically be security for Andrew Dice Clay.
Oh, nice. Jesus. Wow. That's cool. Where's this at?
That is at the Raleigh Improv.
Wow. Okay.
Somebody brought it up at work because they sent out emails. They're like, hey... We actually had a full-on conversation about Andrew Dice Clay, like him, hate him, or indifferent, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. I was still like, I'm not gonna go see Andrew Dice Clay. That's just me.
Yeah, in the like late '80s, maybe. But yeah, it's not my favorite. But I was thinking about him earlier today, actually, because I was listening on the drive to the airport. It's like 2-hour drive for me to get to the decent airport.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, and they were talking about different comedians and everything. And I think his name got brought up with some other comedians. And so yeah, I hadn't thought about him in forever. And then that's kind of weird that he gets brought up twice in one day. So
you gotta go see Andrew Dice Clay, man.
I guess that's a sign. Yeah.
Me, however, I'm gonna pass. I'll pass on that one. There is midget wrestling in Fayetteville, though, so I might go do that.
Man. Wow.
All right, so Eli, once again, I wanted to thank you for coming on the show today and appreciate you coming on talking about.
So we're gonna end it on midget wrestling.
We're gonna end it on midget wrestling, man. Yeah, I was like,
okay, got it. Yep.
Our last episode was called Lowbrow Humor, so I gotta kind of steer it clear on this one.
That's cool. Perfect.
But we really do appreciate it. We talking about insight and self-defense and YouTube and of course Magic Mike and all the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it too. I've enjoyed the conversation. It was we hit a lot of bases, man. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Anytime. And where can people find you to get your YouTube or your Instagram or anything?
Yeah, the two most active things, pretty much if you just plug in Night Jiu-Jitsu, then I'll pop up, and probably YouTube will pop up first. I'm on Instagram, the little @Night_Jew_Jitsu_ all that stuff. So, but yeah, Instagram and YouTube are my two that I pay the most attention to. And I'm on Facebook, and I'm probably on Twitter or something. I don't know. So.
Awesome. Well, once again, I appreciate you coming on. Randy, do you got anything for our friends and listeners before we head out?
No, I second what Rob said. I really appreciate you coming on. This is an awesome conversation. I wasn't sure, if I'd get a response, but I was definitely interested in having you on because I feel like we have a lot of the same opinions and views on some things. So I appreciate you coming on, discussing that with us. And, check him out, guys. Listeners, check him out. He's got a lot of good content on his YouTube. I've learned a lot from it myself, so definitely go and check that out. Is there anybody that anything you want to bring up before we leave, Eli? Anything you want to mention or people want to give shout-outs to, anything like that?
No, I mean, I shouldn't say no. I mean, there's always somebody and something going on. I've got some seminars coming up in the near future. I've got one coming up in Cape Girardeau soon, and then I've got one coming up in Newton Falls, Ohio, a little bit after that in September, and then I'll be hitting up back in Virginia and down in Florida in October. So I've got seminars, popping up at different places, and I try to keep those posted on my social media outlets. And in addition to the YouTube thing, you can do a membership on YouTube, and you can also I've got a Patreon thing. So I guess I should plug those since those actually pay me. But I'm not a real savvy businessman like that. But yeah, I'm just out here in Charlotte, North Carolina right now, visiting my friends at Fit to Fight, and we do a lot of work together with Fit to Fight and Ryan Hoover and this group out here. So it's all good.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Well, that's where you can find him. You should pay attention to the stuff he does. And like I said, once again, thanks for coming on the show, Eli. And this has been another episode of the Big Jiu-Jitsu Show. Remember the Pod Bros Podcast Network. Don't forget to go to podbros.com and find yourself another podcast you want to listen to. And don't forget to check out our sponsors, Trapper Roll Soap Company, Tape Armor, and Rollz Gear. And find all of our old shows at bjjshow.com. I'm Rob.
I'm Randy.
See you guys next time.